all my life. Been grinding all my life. Sacrifice, hustle paid the price. Want a slice, got to roll the dice. That's why all my life I've been grinding all my life. Look, all my life, been grinding all my life. Sacrifice, hustle paid the price. Want a slice, got to roll the dice. That's why all my life I've been grinding all my life. Look, I'm married.
What's up? What's up? What's up? It's the International Football Bros. Yo, International Football Bros. Hey, it's International Football Bros. We're here again to talk about football. You got Sam and Nate. Find me at KingSam_FF and Nate the Saint FF. What's up? It's International Football Bros. Hey, we're here to talk about football, International Football Bros. We appreciate y'all being here. Like and subscribe to the content. Let's start the show.
Sammy.
What's up, buddy? How you guys doing?
Yeah, good man. How's the weekend been? You been watching any of the preseason week one?
Yeah, you know, you got to get hyped up on the preseason. That's what everybody does, right? So, well, hey, man, I appreciate you being
exactly.
here.
It's
yeah.
Always, man. Always.
Yeah. But hey, you know, it's another show, International Football Bros. This week, we're going to do a something that was recommended to us. It's a trade review, and we're going to do it of the Futures League. So you're part of the Futures League, Nate, with the Stellenbosch Saints. And where can everybody find you at?
Yeah, just on sort of what's it called these days?
X, yeah.
Just at Nate the Saint, but yeah, just sort of getting involved. Most of my opinions are shared on the forum anyway. But yeah, no, thanks, man.
So you got the promising prospect side, and we got a guest today that is on the rising rookie side. We'll go ahead and bring him in. It's the man, the myth, the legend. It's Corbin. Corbin, how you doing, buddy?
I am fantastic. Thanks for having me, guys. Glad to be a part of it. It's high time that you invited me on. I'm ready to get going on some of these trades. I'll be the judge, jury, and executioner today.
You've been busy, man. You've been busy with your own podcast. The what was it called? Belly and the Fish?
The Belly and the Fish. Yeah, just dropped the episode, the long anticipated one after the draft yesterday. I recorded it like last week and just been so busy. Finally, it takes like 4 hours to edit those things too, just because we're not doing it live and I'm kind of a perfectionist. But yeah, it took a while to edit. Finally got it out. Training camp, not a lot of news, you know, but it's preseason upon us. It's fantasy football season. Drafts are going. I got another one tonight, so that itch is coming back to me after the long off season.
So you doing it like a dynasty one or just a redraft one?
Yeah, it's dynasty. It wasn't. I just took over commissioner of this league just this year. Wasn't the best ran, so had to make a couple of changes there. You know, like small bench, taxi squad, non-existent stuff like that. So we switched it up. It's just going to be like a 5-round draft. You know, standard on sleeper, PPR. Nothing too crazy, but just from some friends from high school, and it's a good time. So I'm just in too many leagues as is. I have one that's like a 5-year league, like an elimination league. I got 2 years left on that one to go, but right now I'm in 7 total. So I'm definitely stretched out, but don't really have to worry about the redraft as much. I'm pretty much strictly dynasty now.
Yeah, I kind of took my redraft leagues this year to the best ball stuff. So I kind of have my hands off with it a little bit. It makes it a little less stressful. It's nicer to play, in my opinion. But I got five dynasty leagues myself, and man, it's tough out there because they each got different days. They do waivers, and so trying to keep up, it's a struggle.
Yep. And
being how many you in?
Yeah, I was about to say I won't even try to scare you with how deep I've sort of dived in. I think I'm in about sort of 10, 15 leagues now. I would say in terms of the money leagues, about 10 of them are like sort of full money leagues. And then the other 5 are just sort of home leagues and sort of free leagues. And there's sort of there was a bit of a boom during COVID, obviously in the UK, especially in England. And I would say England is relatively new to fantasy compared to obviously the US. So it's still massively hyped and it's still massively sort of bought into. But yeah, I only really got into fantasy about 4 or 5 years ago at that time. And to me, it's just been trying every single different league under the sun. So I'm in a 32-team league. I'm in a few contract leagues. I'm in like this guillotine league that we've got obviously going on at the moment. So I'm just trying all the different types to see what else I enjoy alongside obviously roster wars as sort of my main league.
So we're going to talk about trade review today. Before we get into like the different slides and talking about it, you guys got any particular way you like conduct yourself or like philosophies you have when you are doing trades, either universal to all leagues or in specific to roster wars or different formats?
Go ahead, Corbin.
Yeah. I mean, I guess in terms of strategy, like in all leagues, I'm kind of known as a little bit of a stickler, but when I approach a trade, I approach it like any other negotiation. You know, you don't have to read Art of the Deal to know how to get the best possible haul for yourself. So I'm never going to give you my best offer right away. But I also try not to make it insulting either, because that's just going to stop conversations there. So, you know, I have been in the past the guy who just fires off trades without like a discussion, just to see, you know, like hopefully something sticks, you know, somebody accepts it. Sometimes it has worked out, but, you know, as you get to know different league members, you see how everybody prioritizes certain players, or, you know, whether it's for a team or a position or youth or whatever it might be, everybody kind of has their own strategy. So when I go into it, I try and, you know, at least have a conversation like, hey, what would it take for this guy, you know, and try and make something work, look at their team, see what their needs are, you know, maybe throw them like a young piece, or, you know, if there's really like a kind of like a lesser known guy, I might try a trade for one guy and say, hey, what if you threw in this piece instead? Then I get the two guys that I want when I didn't even approach him. So there's definitely some strategy involved, but definitely don't want to, you know, show all your cards before it's time to really get the deal done.
Yeah. What about you, Nate? Anything you got in particular?
Yeah, look, yeah, from my side, from my point of view, obviously, I think it was just last year that I was voted the worst person to trade with in roster wars. So it's not a good, it's not a good title to own. But look, I'm not sure if sort of Mike, the London Legion, and I've sort of crossed paths or sort of mentioned, but we obviously work within sort of shipping and commodity trading. So my job from a Monday to Friday is very much sort of negotiating a deal, sort of a trade in terms of commodities. So I'm used to sort of doing one deal over the space of 5 days, sort of back and forth constantly with every hour, like gathering that information. And I think that's unfortunately sort of filtered into my fantasy trading sort of technique, where I do prefer to almost sit down and have a conversation with the person, understand what they want, what they're looking for, what they're trying to get out. Essentially, the more information you get, I feel the better deal you can get out of it. And I feel sort of in the PP, I just felt that obviously in the 3 years that I've been there, there hasn't been too much information flow. And because there isn't that much information flow, it's a lot more difficult, or I found it a lot more difficult to sort of hit people's asking prices a lot earlier. And I'm someone that's very annoyingly, I'll try to squeeze every cent, and that's why it just hasn't been as I haven't been as good at it as it's taken. But I'm trying to learn, I'm trying to improve, and I'm trying to be a bit more market value trade wise. But I still sort of struggle with the valuations of players.
Well, the one thing that I wanted to say too about roster wars specifically is, like, when I first came in and got my team, I kind of wanted to blow everything up. So I was making a lot of big flashy trades, moving some things around because I wasn't really happy with a lot of the pieces. Like, I have my own opinions from my research on different guys. And so once I finally got like a good core of guys that I really wanted, I feel like I've kind of strayed off of, you know, those big blockbuster trades, because I don't want to lose a lot of the pieces that I've acquired. And Roster Wars has so many different ways that you can build your team, whether it's, you know, free agency or through the draft. And then you've got offensive and defensive players to consider too. There's so many different ways to acquire players that I'm a little bit more careful with, you know, blowing my wad on one big deal, when I know, like, in the offseason, I have a chance to land some pretty good players in free agency or in the draft.
I think you both hit on some very key things, and is, you know, trading is about building relationships, having those relationships with people. But the two things I just heard both of you guys say is knowing your league and knowing your league mates. So knowing your settings, and like you said, roster wars, man, you can flex everything. So I can build around wide receivers, I can build around running backs. Same thing on defense, I can build around safeties or linebackers, wherever I feel I can get that value. Like, it's unique and it's different for everybody. And with the scoring format, there's places where you can take advantage and you can kind of gain some value. And then knowing who your league mates are, like you said, Corbin, like knowing who likes what, or Nathan, like you said, like being able to talk and be able to figure out like what everybody's landscape is and everything. I agree with all that. That's what I try to do as well. The additional thing, I think, I don't know if you kind of alluded to it, but I'd like to when I build my trades, I like to look at that other team and I try to assume what I feel like that team needs or would want and build that trade offer off of there. Because like you said, Corbin, like I don't want to offend them. I want it to bridge that gap and like start that conversation. But I find a lot of teams in multiple dynasty leagues I have that like that dynasty paralysis thing where they have to wait to see it. And so sometimes I feel with some owners it's harder. And I know there's been the joke about Clayton Tune going around, like his price isn't going to be today what it was yesterday, because if you got to wait to see it, then you're going to pay for that. And so I like to try to strike before that player pops. Yeah. And there's going to be 9 times out of 10 I'm wrong and I waste some draft pick or whatever. But the times you get right, like you invest. Max Crosby was just brought up in the terrible Trimmers thing. He was acquired via waivers by 2 different teams. Can you imagine getting Max Crosby on free on waivers? Like you have, in my opinion, crazy. that's how you gain that. Yeah.
Yep.
Cool. So yeah, man, I'll go ahead and bring up the slideshow. Pull this thing up, and we can kind of talk about it. I'll put on the other side that we got some viewers now. Let me bring them in. Who we got here? We got Greg. He likes it. Greg loves the trade. But hey, so today, like we talked about, is going to be the Futures League. So we're going to talk about futures, and then we'll get another show. We talk about the main league. So looking at some of the stats for the Rising Rookies, looks like the Rising Rookies so far has had more trades than the Promising Prospects. I broke them down in the different periods because I think the different periods of our league, it allows for different opportunities, different trade cycles. So pre-RFA, before we do our restricted free agency, we had 15 trades. During our RFA, we had you guys, the Rising Rookies, had 12, and that's a lot of people trying to move assets, to acquire money to be able to do stuff in RFA, as well as, hey, if they lost a player and they're trying to figure out a way to replace that player. The time between RFA and the draft wasn't very long, but in that time, you guys had 1. During the draft, there was 12. That's usually where you usually see the most action. And since the draft, there's been 7. So that's a total of 47 trades so far this year. I mean, one of the things I like about Roster Wars. Yeah, let's say one thing I like about Roster Wars is it's active year round, and that kind of shows, that's a lot of trades already. So what I did is I tried to break down 3 different ones in the different stages. So there's tons, like there's 47. There's tons to pick from. So if one of them is not the team's, your team or whatever, then it is what it is. But here was the first one I picked to talk about. It was the Ross Latavia Unicorns giving up Mike Williams and a 2024 first over to the Gainesville Gators, getting Ryan Tannehill, Tim Patrick, and Fusadi Olakun. And you can see the contract years for each one. Mike Williams has got a 1 year. Tandy's got a 2. Tim Patrick had a 1, and now he's on injured reserve. And Mr. Olakun was a linebacker. He's a top 5 linebacker. I think linebacker 1 in 2 years straight. Has a 4-year contract. Any initial impressions off the jump, Nate, since this is the Rising Rookies? I'm going to go with you first. Any initial impressions from this trade before we get into some of the data with it?
Yeah. So just to give a little bit of context, obviously we talking from a point of view that we understand those sort of teams and their stage of their cycles, really. Obviously, pre-RFA might have been slightly different, but it's been very clear that the Gators are looking to rebuild. They sort of have gone through quite a good period of being quite a competitive side. And then obviously the Latvia Unicorns are in one of the more difficult chapters, but their team definitely trying to compete or to at least get tickets to playoffs and important games later in the season. Looking at that trade just on face value, you can clearly see what the Unicorns need. They obviously needed a quarterback, having Jalen Hurts as the only other quarterback, and obviously Brissett. And in terms of Olakun, he's just a quality player, I think, and he's obviously stood out with elite production, where roster wars scoring is obviously pretty conducive to linebackers as well. So So the first really, to me, sort of services a starting quarterback, an elite linebacker, and then obviously you've got a Mike Williams, Tim Patrick sort of toss up here. Mike Williams, on face value, historically has obviously been a more elite wide receiver than Tim Patrick, so it's a slight downgrade. I personally, similar to the Latvia Unicorns, was relatively hopeful of Tim Patrick's role and the opportunity that he was going to get in a newfound Denver side with obviously Sean Payton there. But the biggest issue obviously is now that he is injured. So looking back in hindsight, it's a shame of the injury, but at the time on face value, I did think this was a good move for both teams. Losing aging players, gaining the first round draft picks, and the Unicorns obviously loading up on a startable quarterback and an elite linebacker.
Corbin, what do you think?
Well, for me, I mean, I think that there's a lot of teams at the top of the Rising Rookies group because there's only really 3 teams that are going to be super competitive. So like myself, I kind of see Ross like, they have a competitive team. He has some really good starters, not the best depth, I would guess, but he was kind of one quarterback away from being able to field a potential contender. And,
Right.
It's not always going to be, a 3-4 year stretch where you're just going to be winning every single year. So you got to take your shots when you can get them. Mike Williams, I mean, I like him. He still has a little bit of youth, and the past 2 years he's kind of hit his stride. He does have injury concerns, but I mean, I like those picks as well. Coming from the Gators perspective, just to be able to get rid of Ryan Tannehill and reap that, first round pick out of it. I mean, that's great for him, just having that young core and just getting another first round pick where you can add to it or, package that with something to go out and get your guys. I do think it's a pretty even trade, but I think that any quarterback, especially one on a 2-year contract, is worth a first if they're in a quarterback 2 range. So I like this side for Ross. I would give him the nod on this just by a hair.
Yeah, I mean, you guys hit it. What I was going to say too. So if you looked at, like Nathan said, you looked at Ross's quarterbacks before this trade, he had Hurts and Brissett. I don't know what's going to happen there in Washington with Sam Howell and Brissett, but being able to lock up Tannehill to be able to kind of help put him over the edge, and especially I think Mike Williams didn't really hurt him that much. If you look at, like I listed his other offensive flexes there, and then adding a linebacker 1 in the deal, I think that helps his overall. And what he really gave up here was Mike Williams and the 2024 first. So I put in there what the Rate My League guys had him. They kind of had him as Ross as a borderline playoff team, and the GOAT rankings I had the same. I had them borderline playoff team. So I understand the push. I understand wanting to go for it. And like you said, Corbin, I don't think Ross is one of the top 3, but once you get your ticket to the playoffs, anything can happen. And it's preseason, so we don't know what injuries or any kind of additional free agency pickups are going to do. So I get it from Ross's perspective, and I think he got good value. When I look at Gators' team, his wide receivers kind of confuse me. It's like I know it looks like he's in a rebuild, especially when we look at his quarterbacks, because once he moved Tannehill, all he really has is Sam Howell. Sam Darnold, but who knows what that San Francisco situation is going to be. At best, I think Darnold's the quarterback 2 there. But going into a Superflex league, going into the league with just one quarterback it usually doesn't bode well. So, and then looking at his linebackers after trading for Sadie, Drew Tranquil was the only one worth mentioning. So I think looking at it, Gators is in a rebuild. So looking at the other wide receivers with OBJ and Marvin Jones, those might be assets I might be trying to move. Even Mike Williams on a 1-year deal, because I don't think he's trying to compete. I got Pittman in this slideshow, and I got him in red because he ended up moving that 2024 first for Michael Pittman to, I think, the Blitz. So that's another conversation you wanted to be. In my opinion, I don't know if the 2024 first is worth Pittman, but I know there's a lot of Pittman fans out there. So
yeah.
Yeah.
No, I hear you.
Well, I'll just quickly ask you. Sorry, go ahead, Corbin.
Well, I was just going to say that I wouldn't really say like this is a bad move for the Gators, because to get out from Ryan Tannehill and get a first round pick for him essentially is great. You get a Mike Williams, which is good, but losing, no one's said his name. I don't think Alonquan,
I can't say it right.
Whatever it is, the linebacker. He's not just a throw-in, Aluakon. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, losing Aluakon is, it's definitely a hit. That's
Yeah.
good. But at the same time, just getting some good capital that you can use in the future that you're not going to, it's not going to make it a worse draft pick for you. Like having good players can sometimes hurt you when you're in a rebuild. So I wouldn't say it was a bad move. I like it for both sides, but just trying to be impartial, I would say that the Unicorns take it just by a hair.
Sweet. Nate, you anything else to add?
Yeah, I was just going to sort of mention, obviously, you've just briefly touched on sort of the Pittman, sort of reinvesting that first to get Pittman on a 3-year deal. I think, look, if there's anyone to actually ask, it's probably yourself because you're obviously very high on Anthony Richardson. And that's probably more on sort of the leg side of things and his mobility and a sort of improvisation. What are you expecting from someone like a Pittman or sort of the culture receiving group in general going into 2024?
No, I'm interested in Pittman. I think at that value, especially right now, when I think the Gators are probably trying to invest in stuff for the future, I don't know if Pittman's going to help them right now, and that draft pick is just only going to gain value. Like it's not ever going to lose value. So I'm just not necessarily sure that move was needed to be made right now. I'd be more looking at trying to like maybe sell the, like I said, the OBJ, the Marvin Jones, the newly acquired Mike Williams that really doesn't help solve his problems and get the draft capital and then maybe later invest. But it's not bad value. I just probably would have done it differently, but to each your own, right?
On the other hand, Pittman could be getting a bunch of jump balls with Anthony Richardson just chucking them up. So I don't know. I like Pittman as a player. I liked him a lot. I haven't soured on him, but yeah, first is probably right around that value. I might have held it for the time being if I were him, but
yeah, I mean, you never know. Pittman could gain value this year, so and he could be worth first plus. So, yeah. Okay. The next trade happened on draft day, and there's actually 2 trades I got here because it happened. You see, 3 hours later. Looks like the crunch, like he was busy. He traded the 108 and his third, and because the Warlocks wanted to move up, and he ended up getting the 111 and the second. So he got the bump up from a 25 third to a 25 second to bump up 3 spots. And the next slide, I'll go over what each one of those draft picks ended up being. And then 3 hours later, he traded that 111 to the Gators and got a haul as well. So on the surface, you guys got any takes on this before I just put over to see what exactly those players ended up being for those picks?
Yeah, I'd want to see who they are because I mean, if you're not sold on a player at 108, why not move back and recoup some capital? So I want to see who these players are before I make my verdict.
All right, so here was the breakdown. So we just talked about how the Toontown Warlocks, how they moved up 3 spots in the first round, and what they did is they went up to get Quentin Johnston. And if you look at all their drafts, Quentin Johnston went at 1-8 in every single of the 4 leagues except for one, and then that other one, I think it was the Dastardly Dozen, he went at the 1-7. So it was the right move, in my opinion, for the Warlocks to move up to the 1-8 if that's what his target was, and obviously it was, because that's the likelihood of QJ falling to 111. It was not very high. But he paid the difference from the third to the second to move up to draft QJ. And that was the first trade. And on the right hand side, it is a different trade. So we'll just talk about that one off first. So would you pay a 2025 third, or sorry, 2025 second to move up 3 spots?
I mean, for me,
I personally think. Go ahead.
No, you go ahead. I think we're on a little delay, so.
Yeah, sorry. I think I'm the one that's probably lagging just behind you. But yeah, look, I think in this particular draft year, I think there was a slight fall off after sort of the 108, 109, maybe even the 110. And I do think the 111 was definitely, in my opinion, in sort of that second tier of elite upside, or at least sort of higher floor type players. So I sort of can see the move from sort of a second trading back to a third and obviously moving up 3 places. So I do think that was worth it for someone like a Quentin Johnson, who you're going to stick sort of a long contract and invest quite a lot of time for. I'm not exactly sure who ended up going at the 111.
So the 111 ended up being Dalton Kincaid.
Yep. That's what I was just looking
Yeah,
up right now.
so I would tend to side with the full round draft move for Quentin Johnson over Kincaid. And look, I do think Kincaid is also an elite talent, but at that position, I would be a little bit hesitant in terms of the immediate value versus someone like a Quentin Johnson.
Yeah, and for me, I mean, I can't remember if you were on the podcast when we were talking wide receivers, Sam, but my feelings on Quentin Johnson are pretty public. I think that, he very well could have a good career, but, I don't like his route tree or his hands. Going to the Chargers is obviously an ideal destination, but he's going to be the third wide receiver there. And Josh Palmer isn't just some slouch, like he's going to be wide receiver 3 or 4 because Mike Williams and Keenan Allen are there. Injuries pop up, maybe he gets some good targets, but I don't really like the player. And I don't like, losing that whole round because the difference between the second and the third round is pretty big. So I would almost side with who made the trade? Malachi?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would probably take the latter, honestly. I would keep that 111 because to get a guy like Dalton Kincaid or a Zay Flowers who was right there, I had Dalton Kincaid over Quentin Johnson in my ranking. So the difference between those two players is pretty significant, and you have to give up your second round pick to move back to the third. So I didn't like this one for Tyler.
Yeah, so I'm of the same mindset. Like I had Jordan Addison as my number 2. I had Zay Flowers as my number 3. I can't remember if I had QJ as my 4 or 5, but I had similar concerns with him. Obviously, landed in Los Angeles, playing with Justin Herbert like that is sexy. But with what was available at 111 or what would have been available at 111 with Dalton Kincaid, I do think that I would rather side with just sticking pat and having that 111 and having that second vice a third, especially because I value seconds more than in this league than most, because I know that I can put that player that I drafted in the second round on the taxi squad. And if anybody wants to come, they got to give me a first. So I am a fan of second round picks over third round picks all day, every day. So I don't think Tyler, obviously it's a first round draft pick. So, he didn't get completely hosed here, but I would have rather have kept pat and just took what the board gave me. So,
and if you like QJ, good for you, go get him. But
yeah.
Me personally, I never was the biggest fan. But if there was like a different player there, then I would be like, oh, okay, yeah. Like if it was a Devin A. Chain or if it was a Dalton Kincaid there, I'd be like, yep, I can see it. Like you don't want Dalton Kincaid to go. Yeah. So I don't think that the pick value was wrong, but it's just more the player than anything for me.
Yeah, agreed. And then what I got broken on the right-hand side is Tyler made another deal on draft day, and it was just him moving all of his 2024 picks, the rest he owned, which happened to be the 6-1 and 6-12, and then that 2025 third, which is why I brought it into this, that one he has got from the crunch, and a 2025 to move back into the draft. And he moved back in to select players at the 4-4 and 4-6, and that was Chase Brown and Brian Breesy. So overall, what the deal looked like was he gave up his 111, and he gave up the remaining picks in his 2024 draft and that and a pick in the 2025 fifth to get QJ, Chase Brown, and Brian Breesy. We know Tyler likes the deal. We know Tyler will make deals sometimes that to go after his players, but some win, some lose. And like the note at the bottom, he ended up getting that 2025 third and fifth back in a deal that I think that he actually got favorable return from. But that one right there, the 6-1, 6-12, and the third and the fifth for those two players, I'm not a huge fan on. I think Chase Brown is fool's gold.
Same.
But I get trying to get a running back, any running back on a 32. I get trying to get them, and because that value can come back up, especially at that time. We didn't know what was going on with Joe Mixon. So
yeah, agreed. And yeah, Chase Brown, I've definitely soured. I mean, I never liked him, but I've soured on him even more now that the Joe Mixon, he's going to be playing. So there's no chance that he's really getting anything other than, second or third backup role on that team. Brzee, I mean, I like him, but he's raw and he's going to take at least a year or two to really see what he's made of.
Nate, you got anything on that subsequent trade that he made, or?
Yeah, not too much to add necessarily. I think obviously at the time there was a lot of smoke around Joe Mixon, so I can understand, and obviously we have the advantage of playing in a league with Tyler. Like, obviously, I'm on the PP side, but we obviously interact with him every day, and we can tell that Tyler is an opportunist in the sense that he'll be very aggressive on certain players who are hyped at certain times of the year. And obviously, someone like a Mixon who did have big question marks, I can understand why Tyler made this play to try and get Chase Brown. But unfortunately, maybe you could, in hindsight, you look back and say, look, it was a pretty erratic trade without having all the facts put together. And maybe it's something that Tyler learns from and tries to sort of be a bit more sort of patient with things like that. But look, he's got his guy, and who knows, if Mixon goes down injured or has any sort of reoccurrence of any injuries, then Chase Brown might well sort of forge a sort of role for himself. And then sort of just very quickly onto Brian Breeze, like he not the flashiest player, but he has had a lot of good hype out of training camp and sort of early season. But at the same time, we're talking about a DT, and most of these defensive tackles, really break out sort of later in their career. So I do think a fourth rounder for any defensive tackle is a bit on the high side, just going forward.
Okay, so we saw what Toontown got out of it, what the Crunch got out of this deal. Like I said, he moved the 1-8, and he moved his 2025 third back to the 111 and 2025 Warlock second. And then he ended up moving the 111 that he had just acquired back again, this time 5 spots with the Gators. He moved the 111, and what he got in return was the 2-4, the 3-4, and a 2025 second. So overall, he ended the day with the 1-8 in his 2025 third, and he ended the day with 111. I'm sorry, with 2-4, 3-4, and 2 seconds. So he was able to capitalize on future draft capital. And then at the 2-4, he drafted Sam Laporta, which I think is just a huge win. So he got Sam Laporta at 2-4. He got Jalen Carter, which is a defensive tackle I really like, at the 3-4, and then 2 seconds for the price of that 1-8 in his 2025 third. Like, that's a tear down that I am a big fan of. Nate, what do you got to say about that?
Yeah, like I couldn't necessarily agree more. I think he's done very well there to sort of tear back. I quite like the Crunch. I sort of in our Across the Pond podcast that we did a couple of weeks ago, the Crunch to me is one of, in my opinion, the dark horses in the rising rookies this year. It might be a team that's slightly slept on, but I do like, even though obviously I see you've sort of graded them 9 out of 12 on the Drew draft side, there's just something about their team that I do sort of like. And I think Laporta was a great addition. And I think someone like a Jalen Carter was a great addition. And on top of that has added future value as well and future draft capital. So look, I think the Crunch did very well from that in hindsight, losing the opportunity on QJ, but investing in pieces and future draft capital.
Yeah, and for me, I mean, everybody knows I'm the Lions homer. I love me some Sam Laporta for sure. I mean, I liked him even before he was drafted there. When we did our podcast, I mentioned how he was my sleeper just because of his run after catch ability. He has good hands. Like, he's going to see the field a lot. He's probably going to be the tight end one for the Lions, starting week 1 against the Chiefs and onward. So, I mean, I like him, but at 111, I do love some Dalton Kincaid, and my bias is not going to overcome my love for Dalton Kincaid. So he is a great player, but if you told me I could have Sam Laporta in 2 seconds or Dalton Kincaid, then I'm probably going to take Laporta in the 2 seconds. So I can't bash John for moving back and getting some more draft capital. I probably would side with him on that one. And then Jalen Carter too, just to touch on him, much like Brian Brzee, these guys are projected to be 3 tech guys, like the penetrators, the guys who are going to make tackles in the backfield, tackles for loss, sacks. Like they're not the, the space eaters and let the linebackers go and clean it up. So Jalen Carter obviously was one of the best prospects coming into the draft, and then all the off-field shit happened. So, but going to the Eagles is an ideal destination for him. So, I mean, getting him in the 3rd round, you might have gotten the best defensive player in the entire draft. So I can't bash it, and I like the moves that John made.
Yeah, man, I agree. And I think John actually made the most rookie picks from the Lions. So I don't know if you're actually the homer. It might be John.
Yeah. And John's one of the same old Lions guys too. So he might say that with his words, but I mean, let his actions speak for him. He loves the Lions. He can't resist it.
So the third person in this deal was the Gators, and so what he did, like we just talked about, he moved up to 111 from the 3-4, or from the 2-4 and the 3-4, and his 2025 second, and he drafted Dalton Kincaid, which we kind of just covered. I agree everything you said, Corbin. I'd rather have Dalton Kincaid over Sam Laporta, but if you give me Sam Laporta in 2:25 seconds and Jalen Carter or Dalton Kincaid, I'm taking that side. I still think that Mike got a good deal here, because Dalton Kincaid, but just a grand scheme of thing, when you do the whole triangle of the trades, I like what John walked away with. What did puzzle me, and like we kind of already talked with the Gators, that I kind of feel he's in a rebuild, is before all these trades happened, you can see that left-hand column. He had the 2-3, 2-4, 3-4, 5-2, 5-4, 5-7, 7-7, 7-2, a 24 first and a 25 second. And then after the trades, he ended up with Michael Pittman, Dalton Kincaid, Luke Musgrave, and a 25-6. And so tight end heavy. And at the time when he did these, he had George Kittle on his roster. So a lot of movement.
But he just traded him, or Kittle?
Yeah, he traded George Kittle. We'll get to that trade. It's with the Pigskins here in a minute. But so a lot of movement from his side on the left-hand side to what he got on the right. I honestly think I would have rather sat pat with that draft capital.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I would say that, the fifth and down are kind of irrelevant, but to lose that first round pick, which is, a mid to late first round pick with Ross, and then also the 2025 second, I mean, he's rebuilding, so that's probably going to be early. You're essentially looking at, almost 2 firsts and 2 seconds for a Michael Pittman, a Dalton Kincaid, which are the 2 solid pieces there. But Luke Musgrave, I mean, nothing really to write home about. And then a 2025 6, which isn't much of note. But yeah, I mean, I like Dalton Kincaid as a player. Props to Mike for going out and get his guy. But when you kind of break it down like that, like all the capital that he gave up, I don't know if it's really worth it. Dalton Kincaid could pop off and be a top 5 tight end this year. All reports out of camp say like he's one of Josh Allen's favorite targets. And if he doesn't take the pressure off Diggs, if they start double teaming him, he's going to be there. I mean, he's basically a big wide receiver playing tight end. So like the player, but when you look at it like that, it is a little daunting.
Yeah, I tend to sort of agree with both of you guys. It's a lot of capital for a rebuilding side, and I think as Sam, as you sort of beat the drum, those draft picks never lose value until sort of the day they're picked, and even then, it's sort of that case. So yeah, you probably could have sat tight, I think, a little bit longer. Obviously, we are talking about sort of picks that were inevitably made this year, but I think it was quite it was quite a lot to move for Pittman and Kincaid.
And I mean, and this isn't a pick on him at all, and to play the devil's advocate here, I think that he's got the most picks the next 2 years out of all of the futures with 27. So sometimes picks in the pocket don't do anything, and go get your players. But at the time, I think that he probably could have got a little more value, because Corbin, as you said, that equates to like 3 seconds and 1 first and an early third. Like that's a lot right there for just those two, for Pittman and Kincaid of value.
Yeah.
But hey, man, like he's, in my opinion, I think he's in a rebuild. So like, you go and you get the players that you want to invest in, and you want to make your benchmarks and your team players. So then maybe that's what he looks at Kincaid and Pittman to be in, and they're not bad pieces to build around. So.
And I'll tell you this too, he would not have made it to Mike at 204, because I was sitting at 202. I would have snatched him up over Jack Campbell any day. I think I moved up to get that pick, but I think that if it would have came down to Kincaid or Campbell, either of those players I would have been happy with there. So he got his guy. He definitely wouldn't have been there if he just held pat. So
yeah. So that was the Rising Rookies pre-draft, that was the pre-draft draft trade. The next one we're going to do is post-draft trade, and this is kind of the one we alluded to, or it feeds into the one we alluded to with George Kittle. But the first one was old Matt giving up Cortland Sutton and that third and that fifth that he had gotten from the Warlocks when Tyler went and moved up to get the Brian Breesy and Chris Evans, and that was to get Sam Howell. I will admit I'm not a huge Sam Howell fan, so I think that I think it's a wash, but at the same time, I like what Tyler got. He was able to, hold the feet to the fire, but still it's a quarterback. So, and then the 36 hours later, Pigskins gave up Jordan Addison, Sam Howell, and draft pick for Matthew Stafford and George Kittle back to the Gators.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll break down in each team so you can kind of see how it all went, but that's how the trades went. So first one we'll talk about is Tyler and the Warlocks. So like I said, during the draft, he gave up the 223 six-round picks, the ones he had left, 6'1", 6'12", in addition to that 25 third, 25 fifth, to go and draft Chris Brown and Brian Breesy. And then later on, he traded back with Matt the Pigskins to get Sam Howell, or he gave up Sam Howell to get those picks back and get Cortland Sutton. So other quarterbacks that Tyler has on his roster, or had on his roster at the time, was Jared Goff. We know Tyler's fanboy status with Jared Goff. The Patriots guys with Mac Jones and who's the other guy that's there?
Doesn't matter.
Yeah, and
Bailey Zappi and
Bailey
Yeah,
Zappi. That's
Zappi.
who it is. Yep. And then we all know in the draft Tyler selected Bryce Young or C.J. Stroud real early. Yeah, real early. So those are his three quarterbacks. So I think that him having Sam Howell was kind of a luxury for him. So being able to trade him was good. And you can see the wide receivers on his team. So he got QJ in another trade, Cortland Sutton, Michael Thomas, Justin Ross, and Nico Collins. That's the breakdown right now of Warlocks.
Okay, I was wondering who that was, Nico Collins. I was like, who the hell is the guy in the Texans uniform?
I try to come up with the 5 best ones, and I'm
Yeah.
sure he's going to think somebody's better, but that's all based off preference.
Yep, one too many. One I didn't recognize. I mean,
We know
Nico
he
Collins.
loves Justin Ross.
I shouldn't talk shit, but is that Justin Ross? I thought that was
Yeah.
Juju.
No, that's Justin Ross.
Why would you throw him in there? Okay, so that's one less that I know. Never mind. Yeah, Tyler, I guess you did need to move up for QJ. Sorry, man.
All right, so what do you think about this move, Sam Howell, for the those draft picks and Cortland Sutton?
Let me look at it, but Matt definitely won both of those trades. Let me refresh myself here.
Sutton's on a 1-year deal too, by the way.
I know, that's why I'm saying that. I mean, yeah, it's a 1-year rental, but I think that I'd have to double check. But Matt's one of the competitors, one of the top 3. I mean, I'm sure that he has some good wide receivers, and it's Cortland Sutton on a 1-year deal. So,
Oh yeah,
I mean,
I'll
he's
get
had
into Matt
a good
next
year,
because
you
I
know?
think Matt definitely won that stuff. But just on Tyler's side, I don't necessarily think Sam Howell was needed, but I think he probably could have got more. But the fact that he got
Agreed. I'd put him at like Sam Howell at like a 2nd-round pick, because it's not like he's nothing, but it's a long shot that he's going to pan out. But he has, he's going to be the starter in Washington. So, that is something. And he has decent weapons. So he could pan out to be a solid quarterback. But very likely, a 2nd-round pick is what I'd be comfortable for him. So I think he got a little less than he could have.
What about you, Nate?
Yeah, I think just to sort of add to that, I think and this is another sort of actually trading strategy, but I think when the Pigskins go into trade and they see that Tyler's obviously sitting on 4 starting quarterbacks, so you're sitting on Goff, you're sitting on Mac Jones / the Patriots situation, you're sitting on CJ Stroud, and you're sitting on Sam Howell. You can sort of hardball it if you're coming from the Pigskins because you're very aware that Sam Howell's essentially a dead roster spot for Tyler. He's the 4th choice quarterback in Tyler's quarterback room, and the reality is like that's how I would look at it. That's maybe where I struggle. Is I essentially say Sam Howell should be devalued to you because essentially he's just a person on your squad that you're never going to start. So I would look at him at market value. I'll say you oversupplied at quarterbacks. Therefore, you should be discounting Sam Howell when you're trading him. You can sit on him, great, but he's actually pointless value to you. So maybe that's where I'm personally might be going wrong at times. If I see you sitting on 5 elite running backs or 6 elite running backs, your 6th one is essentially just a very high-end, what's the right word, sort of backup. But anyway, back onto the specific trade. Again, I think Tyler should have waited a little bit longer. I think sort of Tyler's not in a position where he's competing now. And because he's not competing now, I think the better value for him would have been to see if Sam Howell becomes anything, as opposed to taking a 1 year Cortland Sutton and having to end up paying to keep him. Because Sutton's going to end up going into the RFA next year, and he's going to have to be tagged if he wants to keep him. And look, again, Matt on the Pigskin side knows exactly what he's doing. And if you obviously just take Sam Howell out there and put that value, you've sold Cortland Sutton on a 1 year, Addison on a 6, and a couple of picks, third being the highest, and you've got Stafford and Kittle. So yeah, it's worked out perfectly for the Pigskins in the greater scheme of things. And I think the Gators have got a pretty good situation as well, having Sam Howell and Jordan Addison a rebuild. So yeah, it's tough to see, but I don't know. Just going back to the first point of what I said there, do you guys agree with my valuation? If you are sitting on 4 quarterbacks, are you more distressed in terms of selling that fourth quarterback?
So if I'm sitting on 4, if I'm trying to approach somebody that has 4 quarterbacks, that's absolutely the selling point I'm trying to tell them. But if I'm sitting on 4 quarterbacks, I know what I have, and I'm not going to sell at a discount just because you need one, and I got to look, and that's depth. That way I can move around and do something different later on.
Agreed. I'm with you 100% there. I mean, I don't think you could ever have too many quarterbacks, because if you're a contender and, you got 2 good quarterbacks and really nobody else, one of those quarterbacks go down and you're really making a push for a championship, you can hold your 4th quarterback for a thief's ransom, and it's happened to me so many different times. And for me personally, like, I just don't think you can have enough. Like, sure, Tyler might feel comfortable that Mac Jones is the next Messiah and CJ Stroud is going to pull the Texans out of the rut. Jared Goff, I love Jared Goff, but I would, if I had like a Joe Burrow or a Trevor Lawrence, I know like that guy's going to be there for 10 years. I want at least 2 other guys who are starters and who are going to be a good contributor. But I mean, just having like Bailey Zappi and Mac Jones, I mean, that's 3 quarterbacks who are like solid, but Jared Goff is the best, and he's like a mid QB1, like QB2. Mac Jones and CJ Stroud might not even be relevant fantasy-wise this year. So Sam Howell just gives him one little dart throw that he can use to have 2 starting quarterbacks. So, yeah, I'm not parting with any quarterback for a discounted rate just because I have a lot of them. There will come a time where somebody needs one, and that's when you make the move. They're a long-term asset, not always, short-term, like wheel and deal to get a couple – measly picks out of it.
Yeah, I think just because it's a position of strength for me doesn't mean that I need to sell it less than what he's worth,
exactly. It doesn't change the value. If you have $1 million, it doesn't make your $1 less valuable than somebody with 1,000.
Yeah. So Nate, you kind of alluded to the Pigskins and what he did, and I agree, man. And this is what happened: is up in the top right on the slide, you can see Pigskins. What he had prior to all these trades was Dak and the Arizona situation with Kyler Murray. I think he has all 3, Clayton Tune and Colt McCoy. So he has some concerns there with a quarterback 2, a reliable quarterback 2, and Matt's smart, man. He knew he had to go and do something. So he ended up turning nothing into, at the very end, Matthew Stafford, George Kittle, Puka Nacua, and Jake Ferguson. That's what he ended up getting. So he moved the 4-4, which was Chase Brown that Tyler took, the 4-6, Brian Breesy, Jordan Addison, which is what he ended up selecting at 1-7, Cortland Sutton, and a 2025 7th from the Pigskins, and gained that. So that's the B side down there. And the A side is Matthew Stafford, George Kittle, Puka Nacua, who's been getting all kind of buzz, especially with Cooper Kupp issues and or a hamstring injury. And Jake Ferguson, who, by all accounts, I think he's going to be the tight end 1 in Dallas, and that's a viable position for dynasty or fantasy football. So I could look at this and see that Matt needed a quarterback, but no one else, like, he still was able to pay bottom prices to go and get to upgrade that position, which is crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, Matt being a contender too, just being like 1 quarterback away really from being able to field, a championship roster. Like, you need to have 2, at least QB2s in order to compete. I mean, if you take Matthew Stafford for, Chase Brown, Brian Brzee, Jordan Addison, Cortland Sutton, the 7th. Him alone would almost warrant like all 5 of those pieces right there. And then you throw George Kittle on top, and that just, it's a no-brainer. Like Matt just crushed it on this one. Puka Nacua, maybe. Jake Ferguson, solid upside. Those 2 guys kind of throw-ins. Like, we'll see what happens. That could be value. But just looking at those 2 big pieces and comparing it to the, the losses that he took, trading them away, I mean, he crushed it. I got no complaints about that.
Yeah, the big one is Jordan Addison. So,
yeah, and I mean, he's just a rookie. You're a competitor, and who knows what Jordan Addison is going to do this year. But I guarantee you that Matthew Stafford is going to outscore him at least, and then George Kittle too, most likely will too. So, I mean, you're getting a top 5 tight end. You get, a borderline QB1, QB2 kind of guy who's going to put up like top 15, top 20 numbers. And as a competitor, you need that. So it was the right move.
Nate?
Yeah. I essentially, you guys are sort of saying all the things that I'm thinking exactly the same. I think, Matt's repositioned himself in a great place here. I think, obviously, I'm someone as well that's sitting on that sort of Arizona Cardinals quarterback room, and that's definitely a sort of 2024 problem as opposed to sort of this year. No one knows what's going to happen this year. So we'll this time next year we'll have a clearer picture on what they're thinking. The Pigskins reigning champs, they want to go again. Their squad's ready to go again. So adding Stafford and Kittle. Look, there is some risk with them, but in terms of age and injuries and situational things, Kittle is notorious for sort of missing a lot of time. So if you're looking at a rebuild side of things, you can almost argue for the bottom side where you say Addison and upside, etc. But because we know the context and what the Pigskins are playing for, it's a pretty slam dunk for their project.
Yep.
And with the Gators, I'm sorry, I wanted to say that. Fuck Matt. And what the Gators did. But the Gators did out of that, like I said, I many times I think he's in a rebuild. So he moved Stafford and Kittle for Sam Howell and Jordan Addison. So that's his overall end goal there. And then he ended up trading Zaire Franklin for a contract dump players for 2024 second and 10 war books. So I think Mike's firmly trying to rebuild and build this roster in his direction of what he wants. Obviously, with only one quarterback that's really worth anything, I don't think he's really going to be competing this year. But he's got some young assets there at wide receiver that's nice. Olave, Pittman, Addison, I like that. Kincaid, I like that. Jaden Reed. So he's probably not done. He's probably got some more moves to make. And if I'm the RR and I'm competing, and I think Mike Williams or OBJ or one of these other guys gets me over the top, I might be trying to make some calls.
Yeah, and the thing is too, I mean, you could say yes, he lost the trade, but with somebody in his position, it's okay to lose the trade because sure, maybe he could have squeezed a little bit more juice out of for Stafford and Kittle, but at the same time, he's getting out now and he's collecting that capital through the future. And, he's selling at a relative high point. In 2 years, Kittle and Stafford might not even be relevant in terms of fantasy football. You don't know. And if Sam Howell can take a step and lock down that job in Washington, and Jordan Addison can, step into his own, getting some good receptions with Justin Jefferson taking a lot of the heat, then he could absolutely end up winning this trade, 2 years down the road. I've seen it a million times,
Mm-hmm.
He might lose now, but that doesn't mean that long-term it wasn't a good decision for him. And it's not for Matt either, because he is a contender. Context is important.
Yeah.
No, man, you hit on something. You hit on something that's very important. I think that a lot of people get afraid of. They're afraid of, especially in roster wars, they're afraid of their trade hitting the trade thread and them being perceived as losing a trade. If I mean, in my opinion, you can't be afraid of that because, like you said, context is key. Stafford and Kittle do nothing for his roster besides get him a higher draft pick. Yeah,
yep,
they hurt him. So why not get out and have that perceived loss of value? But he gained a Jordan Addison. He gained a first-round pick. He gained other assets to, get the need he wants. And I'm always a big component of I don't care what the peanut gallery thinks. If I like what I got of the deal and you like what you got of the deal, then it's a win. Like it's because we have different mindsets of why we're doing stuff. And so seeing it on face value, seeing it on Twitter, like it's hard to be able to look at that and say, yeah, this is the winner, or this is a
Yeah.
loser, or so.
And I think a big thing on that. I think a big thing on that, Sam, is that there is a realm and there is a reality where two people win a trade. It's just one wins it more than the other. And I think obviously a lot of people are quick to jump on the bandwagon and say, "Oh, Pigskins won this trade," or Gators won this trade, etc., etc. But there is a very reality that both sides can win. It's just one wins it more than other because one is competing. As you say, a rebuild winning trade is it sounds silly, but a rebuild winning trade is your players actually, or your squad, losing competitive value this year, gaining draft capital and gaining future rebuild pieces. Which at point blank range, it looks like you're losing a trade, but you're winning playing that game.
Yep, agreed. So that was the Rising Rookies ones. We'll go ahead and get into the promising prospect trades. Like I said at the beginning, the Rising Rookies had a little more. So the promising prospects pre-RFA had 2. During RFA, they had 2. Pre-draft, they had 2. So that was actually one more than what the Rising Rookies had. During the draft, they had 8. And then post-draft, they've had more than the Rising Rookies at 9. So a total of 23. And this one's not counting poaches, because we've had a lot of poaches already in the promising prospects, and Nathan's been a victim of a few, and I think a aggressor of one, right?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the poaching setup at Ross Dawes. I think it adds a lovely spice to our league, and I like to load up my taxi squad, and if people come for it, they come for it. But I also like to use it both ways. So I'm always sniffing around the taxi squads.
So Corbin, I'm going to ask you for your take first on this first one because it involves Nate. Okay. So it's the pre-RFA, and I couldn't find a better picture of Sam Darnold because it's great. So pre-RFA, Nate gave up Najee Harris and the 3.8, which ended up being Tajee Spears, for Sam Darnold at a 1 year and a 2024 first to the Raiders. And I think the Raiders, I got down there, he's projected as pretty close. I'd say he's probably a top 3 pick in 2024 if I'm at least right now. We don't know. And then I got down there the depth chart that Nate's sporting out there. The quarterback depth chart, he's got the Arizona situation minus Clayton Tune, and he's got the San Francisco situation minus Brock Purdy. And then running backs, he's got Cam Akers, Roshan, Jerome Ford, Elijah Mitchell. So Nathan is retooling. He's building for the future. But what do you think about him giving up Najee and what ended up to be Tajee Spears for pretty much the 1-3? We'll say that's what it is next year.
Well, if you wouldn't have put the Tajee Spears in there, it might have swayed my opinion a little bit. But now that I know that was 3-0, and I was like, what are you doing? Tajee Spears, like, he's one of my favorite players in the whole draft. But do you consider yourself rebuilding, Nate, or would you say that you're trying to push the chips in a little this year?
I'm 100% gunning for 101.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, then
I'm in a pink scrap.
I can see why you did this trade, but I will say that I do think that you sold Najee at a very low point, because this his 3rd year now? Because he was the 101 in 2021, I think. So, I mean, I do love Najee. I think that a lot of people have soured on him, but if I'm the owner, I would hold Najee for at least 2 firsts. I don't know where that 2024 first is going to be, but I mean, Sam Darnold is pretty much nothing at this point. Yeah, he goes to San Francisco, but he's behind Brock Purdy and Trey Lance. He's easily the QB3. If it's not Brock Purdy, it's going to be Trey Lance. It's not going to be Sam Darnold. I know that. So, that's basically like a 3rd round pick, in my opinion, if that. And I don't think Sam Darnold's 36 years old, is he? 26,
yeah, he's old,
maybe.
Bro. Maybe
he is not 36. No way, dude. He's not 36.
He must be like 26.
Let me look.
Yeah. He's not 36. There's no way in hell. He's 26.
Yeah, he's 26.
Okay. I was going to say that's a typo. He's not 36, but
I mean, look at that picture. He looks older. He looks like he's taking
He looks gruff. So. Well, taking a couple years starter on the Jets, I mean, that'll do it to any man. So it looks like he's seeing ghosts out there. But yeah, I mean, I like the idea of getting the 1st round pick. I don't know if I feel like I looked at the counselors roster, and I feel like there's somewhat decent team ready to compete. I'd
Well,
have
he
to
got
take a
the Raiders first, and I think the Raiders first is going to be quite
Oh,
early.
okay.
So
Okay. Yeah. I mean, it's not bad. It's just, like I said, I think that you could have waited to sell Najee like halfway through the season to somebody who is a competitor. He's on a 3-year contract. He's still probably 23, 24 years old. Like, he's just starting to hit his prime. And with Kenny Pickett, just a blossoming young QB, there's going to be dump offs. He's going to be able to shoulder like the entire running workload for the Steelers. So I like Najee a lot, and I think that you didn't get the most out of him in this one.
yeah, Nate, I kind of agree. I was in on Najee this year. I tried to get him in everywhere I could. Failed almost everywhere. I'm also a big fan of I just a big fan of what I think Pittsburgh's going to be able to do this year with Kenny Pickett and the running back team with Jalen Warren and Najee. So I think you probably could have done without the 3-8, but at the time the counselors made you include that in there. We'll go ahead and look and see what the counselors did. So he gave up, like I said, was likely a top 3 pick, which who knows what's going to happen. But I'm very bullish, and this is early. I'm very bullish on this 24 draft, especially top 5 draft capital in this 24 draft. So if it is a top 3 pick, you're looking at, is it going to be Caleb? Is it going to be Drake May? Or is it going to be Marvin? Like, I would gladly take those players every day over Najee. So if that works out, then I think, like what Corbin said, I think I would have maybe held a little longer. You could have maybe got a little more, but I don't hate it for you. What the counselors is doing is impressive. So like it's in this slide, he gave up likely a top 3 pick in 2024 for Najee. He gave it and would end up being Tajee Spears at 3-8, and then he ended up flipping Tajee Spears, Brian Robinson, and Nolan Smith for Austin Eckler, which I think is insane value.
Yeah.
So he ended up with Najee and Eckler, all for Sam Darnold, Tajee Spears, Brian Robinson, Nolan Smith, and a 2024 first.
So basically you get 2 RB1s for essentially the cost of a first and a second is how I see it. Yeah, he killed it. That is awesome. When you break it down like that, that is a haul.
Yeah.
That's your backfield right there.
So yeah, he's chapter 7, right, with you?
Yeah, he's in the same chapter as me. Exactly.
Yeah, I think I have him as the favorite, and this is making a move like this was definitely help bode that and make that why. So
yeah, look, he had probably one of the better dispersals. I think it was quite a dispersal to come into. I think they had quite a lot of strong pieces. Your side obviously included from that, but the Tyrants and a few others, and obviously the Slashers and a couple of very competitive sides. Hence, they all sort of went relatively competing. Look, I think what's happened here is look, he's done well in that trade. Najee's actually weirdly a little bit older than you think. So he came out of college quite old. So he's actually 25 already. He turns 26 next year, March. But yeah, I was a little bit desperate to sort of make a trade for the sake of making a trade, which is something I just sort of need to suppress at times. But also at the time, it was pretty soon after sort of the playoff run where Purdy had obviously destroyed his elbow apparently. So I was just hedging my bets on having Trey Lance, just trying to pick up Sam Darnold. So that is where I saw the little value in him. But yeah, as you say, like the 308, it was pre RFA, let alone pre-draft. So little did I know that Tajee Spears would be there at the 308. So it was sort of a conceptual sort of. It was a mid-late third-round pick, which to me, or a mid-third round pick, which ended up being Spears, but could have been anyone. So yeah, I probably went a little bit early. As for the other trade, like I don't know, I'm quite high on Brian Robinson, so I wouldn't say as high, not nearly as high as Najee or Eckler. But again, it's sort of what your team's sort of looking to achieve, and I'm not sure who you traded sort of with for the Eckler deal, but I'm sure if that person's retooling, it's nice to have. And I'm sure Eckler was obviously going through all those contract issues as well. So again, there's always context in every trade. but
I think
clearly
it was a tough guys.
the counselors have come out on top. Yeah,
I think it was the tough guys that he did that Eckler trade, but I mean, you just hit it, man. Context is key, and I knew this was the pre RFA trade, but I forgot about the recovery process for Brock Purdy. It really there wasn't a lot out there pre RFA, and then it started ramping up. Like, hey, look, he actually looks like he's gonna be back. So I agree, man. Going after Sam Darnold was I understand your logic there, and there were during the draft process, or at least even the pre-draft process, there were times where I thought, hey, man, like by the middle of the second, I'm out. And then all of a sudden, like we got closer to the draft, I'm like, damn, there's going to be players here in the third, and I tried to get back into the third because of that. So, not knowing that the 3-8 was going to be Tajee Spears, like I wouldn't have pictured that either. So yeah, man, context is key, and I agree with you there. So next trade was actually during draft day, and this is Cyclone City Falcons. I played with Keith for quite a few years, and I've never seen him make moves like these two trades, which was refreshing. But what these trades were is he gave up the 2-5, the 2-7, and the 3-10 and 2 Warbucks. Ended up getting Jordan Love, who was on a 2-year contract, and a 2024 fourth back from the Blizzard. And then 9 hours later, he traded crazy trade, the 6-11 and 20 Warbucks to get Aaron Rodgers. I just think that is insane value for any quarterback. I'm not even a Jordan Love fan, and I think both of these trades were insane value to get a quarterback.
Yeah, agreed.
Just quickly to give a little bit of context here, at the state of this trade in May, Rodgers was still sort of almost in his dark retreat, wasn't he? Like, where was the context of where Rodgers was? There was very real chance that Rodgers could well retire, and I think maybe that is a little bit of context to.
I mean, the trade was made. The trade was made on May 17th. I think Rodgers was already a Jet at that time.
It's after the draft for sure.
Yeah.
I'm looking it up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I put the date up there. May 17th is when the trade was accepted. So
yeah, it says official Jets acquire Aaron Rodgers from Packers on April 26th. So this was after he was already with the Jets.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah. Crazy.
So, and we'll break it down. So this is another thing we were talking about, where I think that in both situations, I think quarterback wasn't a need. I went too far. Sorry. Quarterback wasn't a need for the Blizzard. Jordan Love was just an extra because he has Patrick Mahomes and he has Josh Allen. So, like, what else do you need? But that doesn't mean that I'm going to trade a Jordan Love for nothing. And I can't remember what the Raiders are. I know we'll get into it, but once again, I'm not just going to trade Aaron Rodgers for nothing. But
I just wonder what Connie would have paid for Jordan Love.
Oh, that's what we get into.
That's a tree I would have barked up
because Keith flipped Jordan Love, and that's what we get into next. So
to Connie
at the time when Keith made these trades, he had Justin Fields, he had Stroud, and he had Jacoby Brissett on his roster. So with a rookie quarterback and with Justin Fields progressing from this next year, I could see how he'd want to bolster that room a little bit. And what he gave up in total is on the left. He gave up Drew Sanders. That's who was selected by the Blizzard at 2-5. Condre Miller was selected at 2-7 by the Blizzard. 3-10, which ended up being Tank Bigsby. That was a trade from the Blizzard to the Trimmers, but still. And the 6-11 was Dorian Williams and 22 Warbucks. So Drew Sanders, Condre Miller, Tank Bigsby, Dorian Williams, and 22 Warbucks for what was Jordan Love, Aaron Rodgers, and a 2024 fourth, which is insane. And then Keith traded Jordan Love for Kirk Cousins and Christian Kirk.
That's the move right there.
Yeah.
That was a killer move. Because, I mean, Kirk Cousins, he's going to be a QB2. Nothing special. But you know what you're getting with him? He's going to have some good games and some bad games, but he's pretty consistent. 2-year contract. And then you get Christian Kirk, who is likely just going to be a wide receiver 2 this year. But it might actually kind of help him out having Calvin Ridley take some pressure off of him. I think he had like 7-8 touchdowns, if I'm not mistaken. I'd have to look it up. But he was getting touchdowns on the Jags last year. He's a good wide receiver piece. And, quarterback is king in any dynasty league. I don't care if it's IDP, contract. Like, it's super flex. Quarterback's king. and he got, Aaron Rodgers, who could be a QB1. If you ask me, I think he's probably going to be like a bottom 20 kind of guy. But Jordan Love, too, I'm not expecting much. Maybe he can do something. There's some hopeful Packers fans out there. But, just being able to take a shot on those guys, like say Jordan Love does do well this year, he could flip them for 2 firsts next year, no problem. And then you're giving up 2 firsts, a third, the 6 and the 22 Warbucks. I still would take the QB side.
Yeah, look, sort of looking at this, as you say, like the one thing I'll sort of point out, and it'll probably sound like sort of sour grapes here, but it's properly Keith being an experienced member in the league, not necessarily taking advantage, but obviously striking while the sort of fire is still hot with a lot of these new guys to the league, and obviously sort of sell the Raiders with that sort of Rodgers move. It was 20 Warbucks, and I think it was sort of at a stage where I don't think Sal sort of had come to terms with sort of the value of Warbucks. And again, that's the intricacies of our league, and being opportunistic. And also at the same time, you look at those picks, 205, 207 from the Blizzards, and you're talking about Drew Sanders and Kendre Miller. Like, to me, both of those picks are unbelievably reached in terms of the value of that pick, because you saw Tajay Spears was at 308, but Kendre Miller's at the 207. Obviously, things don't really sort of align there. So, again, look, regardless of sort of that sort of setup, like Keith's obviously been incredibly strategic and taken the opportunities when they've arisen, and essentially ended up with, as you say, a top-end quarterback, a late sort of QB1, if not very consistent high in QB2, and Christian Kirk, which again he's doing the right things, and Keith sort of sits there and he knows he's got a very good view, I think, of the league, and I think this is where his strength is, and he's done his time waiting, and he's very sort of financially Warbucks rich in our league, and sort of controls that sort of aspect of our league, which is another little intricacy, which again he's able to sort of use that to his strength to fuel trades with Warbucks, as you've seen. I think all his trades have included Warbucks, which is his strength really.
Here's the one thing I do want to say real quick is Jordan Love is probably a first-round pick right now. With one good year, and he will have the opportunity to prove himself, he could be 2 first-round picks. You look at Drew Sanders, Kendre Miller, Tank Bigsby, they don't really have an opportunity right now where they are. Like with their current situation, their starters in front of every single one of them, they're going to have a tough time improving their draft capital. 205 for Drew Sanders, 207 for Kendre, 310 for Tank. It's going to be tough for them to gain value when you got Jordan Love, who is going to get that opportunity. So,
yep. Yeah, I agree. I was just going to say that in my opinion, what Keith did, kind of Nathan, what you talked about and what we've been talking about, is he did exactly the same things. Like, he attacked the Blizzard, who had Patrick Mahomes and Josh Allen, and probably sold him, hey, you don't have a need for Jordan Love. I'll give you this and all this draft capital, which Buffalo Bill didn't have. And so he got that deal done. He knows Connie is a Green Bay Packer fan, so he got that deal, Jordan Love, for Kirk Cousins and Christian Kirk done. And Sal, this was done during the draft day. So Sal is new to the league, like you said. This is post RFA. Sal is low on Warbucks. We'll get to that. So he probably sold him, hey, look, here's 20 Warbucks, to help for going into the season. Like, he used the things that he knew about these different owners and his strengths to his advantage, in my opinion, and flipped these draft picks and this little amount of Warbucks for what ended up being Aaron Rodgers, Kirk Cousins, Christian Kirk, and a 2024 fourth. And that allows him to just sit on CJ Stroud and put these other 2 quarterbacks, which are proven veterans, out there with Justin Fields.
Yep.
Yeah.
Keith got better.
So this is this is more to go with Keith. This is it broken down exactly what he did. So it was 2.5, 2.7, 3.10, 6.11, and 22 Warbucks for 1 year Aaron Rodgers, 2 years of Kirk Cousins, 1 year of Christian Kirk, and the 2024 fourth. And what was really crazy is his amount of Warbucks. We'll get to that in a minute. He's still like leading the league in Warbucks, above Matty Warbucks.
Really?
Yeah. So the Blizzard in this trade, in this trade, he acquired, like you said, the 2 picks right there, but he ended up flipping the 310. So he ended up flipping 310 to Chris the Trimmers, which Chris ended up picking Tank Bigsby. He flipped 310 and he ended up getting 312 and the 512 or the 510, which is Chase Brown and Sidney Brown and some more Warbucks. So it looks like that the Blizzard definitely was in the market to try to add some Warbucks to his pocket. And like this little picture shows, quarterbacks he has is Josh Allen and Patrick Mahomes. Like, I get it, but I think I would have tried to get a little more out of Jordan Love, in my opinion.
Yeah. When in doubt, hold those QBs is kind of the lesson I'm taking away here.
Yeah. But you see right here, Keith traded him 2 Warbucks in that deal, and he still has 242 Warbucks. So that's a lot.
There's a new sheriff in town.
Yeah.
There you go. Fun facts. Is Keith versus the field. So all the other 11 teams in the Promising Prospects have 417 Warbucks, and Keith has 242.
Yeah.
He's
He's a
got
top
him
10
monopoly.
percenter.
Yeah.
Capitalism at its finest.
So the last person in that trade deal that happened was Sal. So Sal traded Aaron Rodgers for the 6'11", which ended up being Dorian Williams and 20 Warbucks. At the time, he may also have had, Aaron Rodgers is also a luxury, it looks like, for him, because he had Joe Burrow, Matthew Stafford, and Dak. So once again, kind of, Nate, like you had mentioned before, like, hey, maybe not a need, but it may not be a need, but I'm still not going to sell for bottom dollar. Like,
Yeah, I just think it's tough to lose Aaron Rodgers for just that, a $6 and $20. I mean, I guess he is only on a 1-year deal, but
yeah, and to be fair,
and he is rebuilding, I guess, too. So
to be
terrible.
fair, this is before Aaron Rodgers news came out that he's going to play for more than 1 year, but still,
Oh, really?
1 year of Aaron Rodgers, I would try to get more out of that than just
especially
the
to sort
6'11".
of a competing team. Yeah, definitely.
I mean, the $20 is $20, though. I mean, that's not just nothing,
Yeah.
But
our last trade in the Promising Prospects is Carla, the commander. She gave up Jonathan Taylor, running back, and I got question marks because, I mean, obviously I think he's still going to play this year, but, there's issues with him. At the time of this trade, there wasn't. But running back, Jonathan Taylor on a 3-year contract, she gave to Connie for Derek Carr, who's on a 1 year, and Isaiah Pacheco, who's on a 1 year.
yeah, I mean, this trade happened, I think, before all the stuff came out with Jonathan Taylor and the contract dispute in the back and everything like that. But I mean, Jonathan Taylor, he's a top 5 running back when healthy. The Colts have a good offensive line. They've got a young quarterback. So I think that he's going to benefit in this year in the passing game more than usual. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised to see him get like 50 catches this year. And then they're going to run the ball with him like they always have, because you can't count on Anthony Richardson to just carry the team. Now, on the other hand, I like Pacheco and I like Derek Carr. I mean, Derek Carr is going to be like a high-end QB2 is what I'm imagining. And Pacheco, he had a good playoff run, but Kansas City is kind of like running back by committee. He might be the lead back, but I still don't see him being like an RB1. RB2 or 3 still has value. So the thing that bothers me about the Carr and Pacheco side is the contract side. Yep. When you have a Jonathan Taylor who is an elite, potentially league-winning player, you got to take him over every time over 2 good players.
What say you, Nate?
Yeah, exactly that. I think it sort of it stumped me at the time when this trade was sort of made, because I thought the Mayhem side was quite strong right at the time, and I wouldn't say a guaranteed sort of chapter winner, but they were competing within chapter 7 with the counselors, and also at the same time, sort of the Badgers, they were sort of still working gradually on the rebuild. I thought that this was an absolute slam dunk for the Badgers, because to me, I felt the Mayhem almost took a backward move for a team on sort of like a win now move, but the team's not ready to win now, and these 2 guys are on 1-year contracts. which is what sort of baffled me more than anything, is why Carla would let go of Jonathan Taylor when a team's not ready to win and take on two people who you're going to have to sort of look to protect. I know Carla was struggling for quarterback, but I would have thought she would have gone in other ways around it to try sort of add to it. But when I say struggle at quarterback, I think I'm not sure when the trade was done, but she obviously had A-Rich, who's a rookie but can be elite upside, and then had obviously two sort of mezzanine, I'd say maybe QB3s, maybe sort of low-end QB2s. Tannehill's obviously had a bump since Nukes rocked up in town. But I don't know, it was just a bit of a weird one for me because I thought her team was strong enough that JT would help her get into the top playoffs. And when she made that move, it sort of threw me a bit. I was confused.
I'm looking at other quarterbacks she had on her roster at the time. This is post-draft. She had drafted A-Rich, Mac Jones, which there's a lot of speculation. There's a lot of risk with all three of the quarterbacks she has, right? Yeah, Mac Jones, there's risk there because there's the reports and everything. You don't know what's going on, but he's still a high draft pick like Ryan Tannehill and A-Rich. So I understand like maybe she didn't feel as confident in that, but I mean, at the risk of giving up Jonathan Taylor to get Derek Carr and Pacheco, I don't understand. I don't know if there was a move I would have made because the other running backs she has on her roster that are of note I put on there is James Cook, Kenneth Gainwell, and then the other one is Isaiah Spiller. So I think Jonathan Taylor would have been a better asset than getting the Carr and Pacheco in this instance.
Yeah, roll the dice with Anthony Richardson, Mac Jones, and Ryan Tannehill this year, and then you still got Jonathan Taylor, who's going to carry your running back room. Now, I mean, you got Derek Carr, so he's going to be, a week in, week out starter, and, pick your poison with Richardson, Tannehill, or Mac Jones. But at the same time, like, why not just roll the dice with two of those guys there and then have Jonathan Taylor slot in every single time? Yeah. So, yeah, it's a bit of a head scratcher, but yeah, I mean, it's the price of QBs. I mean, I guess I wish that it was a better or a younger quarterback. If I were going to move on from Jonathan Taylor, I'd want a good QB, like probably even like, like a top 10 kind of guy. Like, I don't know, like, I don't think Trevor Lawrence for Jonathan Taylor is a crazy ask at all. Yep. It just depends on who you have. I think those are two very comparable players.
Yeah. With Derek Carr Connie at the time, I don't think I don't think Connie had Jordan Love at the time of the trade. I'd need to obviously check, but Connie at the time had Jordan Love, which would have been difficult to prize away. But she did have Davis Mills and sort of Desmond Ridder. So I don't know. Maybe Ridder might have been a better option to go after than Derek Carr because Desmond Ridder was also sort of on a 2-year contract. But at the same time, that's a risk. So yeah, it was just sort of an unusual sort of trade.
But like I said, I mean, you could even just take Jonathan Taylor. If I were Connie, you could take Jonathan Taylor and flip him for a better quarterback right away. You know what I mean?
Yes, exactly.
So Connie did have Jordan Love at the time, but like for context around this, I think it's just a little bit of maybe trying to figure out what your identity is because you can see in the slide like Carla's made 4 trades so far this year. She made some draft pick acquisition trades to get a defensive tackle. She moved up to get Marvin Mims, and then she ended up moving Rashad Bateman and Chris Barnes for future draft capital and Warbucks. So I think it's just I'm not quite sure what Carla's intentions or where she thinks she's at. In the grand scheme of things, you can see that the Rate My League guys had her as a bottom 3 team. The GOAT rankings had her as a bottom 3 team for redraft purposes. So maybe she felt like she could move Jonathan Taylor and try to go in a different direction, but this is going to come down to if Carr is her guy, if she loses him in RFA next year, like you just gave up Jonathan Taylor for nothing.
Yeah. She's got to flip Tannehill or Carr, I think.
Yeah.
And so this is what Connie had. Connie had. I was saying this is what Connie had. Connie had Jordan Love and Desmond Ridder on her roster at the time of the trade with Kenneth Walker and I think that's Penny. That's Penny. So
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I like the move. I mean, losing Derek Carr, yeah, definitely a little weak at quarterback, but at the same time, like, if you're not in it this year, just take one high next year. There's some good quarterbacks coming in the 2024 class.
So in my
Yeah,
opinion,
it was an absolute no-brainer. It was an absolute no-brainer for Connie, and like that's pretty clear. Like she's taken on an elite top end running back, and yeah, it was weird because Carla's made sort of 4 or 5 trades previous to that are all rebuilt positions, and then to go flip a running back on 3 years, an elite running back on 3 years for a 1-year quarterback when she's already got 3 starting quarterbacks. Yeah, it just looks quite fishy to me. Anyway.
so here's the question I got. So with Connie having Kenneth Walker, if the trade would have been Derek Carr and Kenneth Walker for JT, would that have made you feel differently?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
It would have been
definitely.
much more even. Because, I mean, Kenneth Walker, I mean, even with Zach Charbonnet, like, I'm not scared, but he was almost rookie of the year. You know, when it comes to running backs, especially, just having even like a couple years of youth is huge in Dynasty. You know, that's 2 more years of value. Jonathan Taylor is going to be a top running back in the league for like 3 more years. But then after that, once he gets to like 26, 27, it's like a Zeke, it's like an Alvin Kamara, it's like a Dalvin Cook. You see these players fall off all the time when they hit that age. So, yeah, getting even like a 2-year upgrade is huge.
I don't know his contract stats, but I am pretty confident that Kenneth Walker was on more than a 1-year deal. So that
it would have been like 4 probably, you know.
Yeah. All right. Well, I think that is actually everything for the different trades we're going to go through. I have a couple of slides for some different stuff. So this is draft capital for the next 2 years. The promising prospects on the left, the rising rookies on the right. You can see that, like we talked about before, Mike with his Gators, they have the most draft capital out of everybody. There's a lot more disparity, I think, in RR of the haves and have-nots.
Yeah.
The London Legion have 0 for 24 and 25, which is crazy. But I get it. So yeah, some people, you know, they're incentivized by draft capital. You can see Connie and Carla both here at the top, and you know we pointed them out as probably rebuilding. So having and Nate. So having Shaq here in the middle, 16, that's good because we didn't talk about his team because there wasn't a trade that we talked about. But for a team that's not rebuilding to have a lot of draft capital, that's just going to continue to bolster that roster. And then to break it down side by side, here's the different trade reviews for each one from rising rookies and the promising prospects. You guys got anything else to add? We're gonna play a little game here. But you got anything else to add about any of the trades that we've discussed or not discussed?
No, not so much. I mean, not a whole bunch of blockbusters. Probably Connie and Carla's was the biggest one. I don't know if that's just because it was the most fresh in my mind, but I'm excited for the season to start because, you know, with the off season, it's more like just shuffling the deck a little bit, kind of getting players into position. But once the competitors versus, you know, the tankers kind of starts to come a little bit more clear, I think that we're going to see a lot more movement halfway through the season and injuries and whatnot too. There's going to be some moving and shaking in the next few weeks.
Yeah.
Nate, you got anything?
Yeah, I tend to agree. I think I tend to agree with Corbin. And I think, as you say, look, the season's 3-4 weeks away, so it's an exciting time. But as you get closer and closer and closer to that sort of week 12, there are going to be a lot fewer competing sides. So as a rebuilder myself, I'm just trying to get as many trades done as early as possible and get ahead of it in terms of acquiring this draft capital. So if there's anyone in the PP that needs win now pieces, just reach out because I'm just trying to flip them now for any sort of draft capital. But as you get closer, like as you do get closer sort of into the season, other teams will realize their team isn't good enough to compete, and that's when it becomes a bit of an arms race. And it's going to be interesting. It's going to be a good year. But yeah, the season's 3-4 weeks away, so exciting times.
Yeah.
And that was a paid advertisement by Nate. PP, please trade with him.
Yeah, all for swag.
Yeah.
All right. So what we're going to do now is we're going to play a little game. And Corbin, as you as the guest, we're going to let you go first.
All
so
right.
if you can pull up the league, and you see I got it up too. But what we're going to do is we're going to run a 100-yard dash with everybody in the promising prospect. And the team that finishes first and second, I'm going to give you 5 minutes to come up with a trade you would do if you were between those two teams. And then we'll rotate. We'll have Nathan do it for the RR. So I'm going to go ahead and kick it off, and we'll see who comes in first and second.
I was like, the 100-yard dash, like, what the hell is going on?
Oh, man. We use this for, like, simulating everything for any kind of draft order stuff when you first start off a league? You never use
Yep.
this? Okay.
No, I just do like a random name randomizer or whatever. Like that's what I do for like the Survivor League and everything.
Okay.
This is much more fun.
It is fun.
Oh, Nate.
Man, look at this,
Go on,
Nate.
Nate's going to trip.
Go on and
He's
say,
gonna trip.
I'll take just a quick.
Look at that. You got this.
There he is.
The Saints and the tough guy. Oh, no, the Saints and the Falcons. That should be interesting.
How did the tough guys not make it there right there?
I don't know. The Saints and the Falcons. This is good for Nate because then now Nate can look and see what he could do.
Yeah.
I charge $5 for my recommendations, Nate, so.
Well, I'm sure Keith and I, if this trade goes through, we'll send you a commission on the side. A couple of warbucks.
Yeah,
I'm sure Keith will be happy to transfer them across.
Little matchmaker fee for sure. It's required.
So, all right. The time to start. I'm going to give you 5 minutes. Let's see. There you go. You got 5 minutes to and Nate, you better be ready because you're next.
So I'm taking a look at Nate's team right now. He's got Kyler and Colt McCoy, and then he's got Trey Lance and Sam Darnold. So definitely could use another quarterback there. We got Cam Akers, Michael Carter, Roshan. Need some running backs there. Chase Claypool. CeeDee Lamb's very nice. Chase Claypool. Yeah. Terry McLaurin. Donovan Peoples-Jones. Michael Pittman. That's some good receivers. Tight end. Noah Fant, but some other depth guys there. Then we go to defensive tackle, a little shallow. We got Joey Bosa's nice. Nick, you got both the Bosa brothers. Okay, that's a nice pairing there.
That
and
is
Marcus
nice.
Davenport, Lorenzo Carter, Khalil Mack. So, yeah, defensive end is definitely set. And then Jerome Baker I like. Demario Davis I like. Got a little bit of that hometown bias right there with Demario Davis. Okay. Yeah, defensively not too bad. Obviously, like defensive tackle is something that pops out as a position of need. Running back and quarterback as well, but you are rebuilding too. So then let's take a look here. And who was the other one? Tampa Bay Tough Guys? Was that it?
No, it was the Falcons.
Falcons. Okay.
The Falcons because the Tampa Bay Tough Guys fumbled at the goal line, like Mike said.
Yep, you're right. Okay. So Falcons, some decent quarterbacks here. CJ Stroud is probably the guy that I would be looking at as like an early target because you got Kirk Cousins, Justin Fields, and Aaron Rodgers. So those are 3 good quarterbacks for a competitor. And then you got CJ Stroud, who's just there to kind of, take the reins later on. So that's a guy that you would probably have to give up some considerable draft capital for. But running back, not the most depth for the Falcons. DeAndre Swift, Bijan, and Antonio Gibson, I guess you could say, are some decent pieces there. Receiver wise, Rashad Bateman, DJ Chark, Jamar Chase. I like those guys. Christian Kirk, Drake London. Okay, so he's stacked at receiver. Calvin Ridley as well, and DJ Moore. Yeah, that's a lot of receivers. Tight ends. He's got some good guys here. Okay. And then he has some good defensive tackles as well, but he is a competitor. So I'm going to make it more offensive based. So I could see a good fit for a tight end or for a quarterback between Nate and the Falcons here. So let me see if I could pull both of these up side by side. So what draft picks do you have here, Nate?
So
do you have
I've
a
got
couple of firsts coming up?
Yeah, I've got 3 firsts in 23, and then I've got 3 seconds as well in 23. So I'm pretty loaded. Sorry, that's 24 next year. So 3 firsts and 3 seconds, and then I've got 1 first and 2 seconds the following year.
Okay. And how do you feel about CJ Stroud?
It's difficult. I wouldn't give away my 2 firsts that are sort of my first, which is possibly a 101, and the Raiders first, which could be above the 104. I'm probably more likely to move the Raiders first than my own.
Okay.
And then the other first is the Blizzard, which should be sort of 108, 109, 110.
Mm-hmm. So if you are serious about, the tank, you've got Cam Akers, who's on a 2-year deal. Now, I'm not the biggest Cam Akers fan, but he does have some value especially right now. Like if he goes down with an injury or if the Rams really suck and can't get anything going because their offensive line is trash.
Got 50 seconds.
Somebody like Keith might want a running back. So I would propose something along the lines of Cam Akers for like a Cole Kmet or a Sam Laporta. I think that's a pretty fair deal. Like a Sam Laporta and Cole Kmet, you get 2 good tight ends right there. Or you could do like I'm going to say Sam Laporta for Antonio Gibson. Sam Laporta and Antonio Gibson for Cam Akers. I think that's a pretty good trade. Because you're getting a high second round guy right there. And Antonio Gibson, who is going to have some PPR value. He's on a 1-year deal, but I think that's a pretty fair trade. Keith being a competitor, he gets a Cam Akers. You get an Antonio Gibson and a Sam Laporta.
Well, yeah,
right in the nick of time.
If Keith is listening to this and if he sends that across, I will accept that because I would happily take Sam Laporta right now over sort of the Akers situation. Look, again, I don't know, as you say, running backs in a rebuild. But who knows?
You could take the initiative and send it over.
Yeah,
I'll as we speak, I'll probably send that across and see if Keith has been listening.
See if he's watching. Even if you have to sweeten the deal with a third or something like that too. I mean, or maybe like a fourth, start off with a fourth and then go up to a third because that's probably a good running back prospect next year. And Antonio Gibson is on that 1-year deal, but you're getting the tight end one in Detroit. Jamison Williams is on the suspension. Like he could be the number 3 option next year in Detroit. So I like it for both sides.
I do too, man. I'm high on Antonio Gibson this year too. So I think that makes sense for Keith and that makes sense for Nathan. You did very well with that exercise. I appreciate it.
It was a lot harder than you would think, honestly, just quick whipping through,
You kind of set the bar. Now Nathan's got to deliver because now it's his turn. So Nate, I'm going to run it for the RR and we'll see who the 2 teams that you get a pick from.
Hopefully I get the Mungman.
Yes, please.
Turn the favor.
I need a good trade. I haven't had one.
I hope it's not the Pigskins, man. He gets enough action.
I know. He's going to slow down. Where are the Mungmen? Oh, we're way down there. And look at Tyler. He's just 10 yards in. Jeez.
We got to watch and see who comes in last because if it's Tyler, we can give him shit. Oh, nope. It might be old or young
the
Matt.
Blitz is coming up. Come on. No Pigskins. We talk too much Pigskins. It's going to be him for sure.
It is. It's a Pigskins and
Arsenic. Oh, Thief.
And they're Unforgiven.
Pigskins.
Okay.
Yeah. So Pigskins and the Unforgiven is who you got. We'll start the clock over.
And if I'm not mistaken, I think the Unforgiven's kind of like middle of the road, if I want to say, too. And then Matt's clearly a competitor.
My observations, obviously, first of all, they're in the same chapter. So there could be a bit of sort of back and forth here. On the across the pond pod that we did the other day, we sort of suggested that the Pigskins are still compete now, win now. The Unforgiven are in a very difficult chapter, so probably looking to maybe not necessarily retool because I think they've still got quite a decent roster, but definitely look at the future in terms of maybe this is not their window, but hopefully in a year or two. What sort of draft capital do either have, Corbin, if you're able to sort of help me with on both sides?
Yeah, let me take a look at it. Stand by.
Yeah, I'm pulling it up too.
But just sort of skimming through. So the Piggies, look, they've got good quarterbacks, sort of Stafford, Dak. They could probably do with one more quarterback running backs.
Dude,
you got
the Pigskins on the Warlocks 2024 first.
Which is essentially the 101 or the 102.
Yep. All but a lock.
Okay, so they're not going to let that go. They're pretty strong at running back. You've got Christian McCaffrey, Miles Sanders, Barkley, wide receiver. You're very strong. You've got Diggs, Evans, Kirk, Waddle. Tight end, they've got the Hawk and they've got Kittle. The thing with the Pigskins is they've just got such a good team. It's like I don't really know what their need is. Maybe I could argue that DT depth is something to throw in here. Safety depth, maybe. Looking through Aaron's team, yeah, Aaron's team as well, sort of running back. I'm just trying to think who he wants to get out of.
You could use another wide receiver.
Okay. Yeah, I
Matt
think
has
he
got a
could probably
crap ton
do
of running
another-
backs.
Yeah, he's got a lot of running backs, but I just don't think he'd want to let go of that. I'm just trying to think what would tempt Matt into a trade here. And to me, if I'm Matt and I'm looking at the Thiefs team, I really think a QB upgrade is what I'm going for here. And if I'm the Piggies, I'm sort of approaching the Unforgiven. I'm sort of saying either a combination of here is a Kyler Murray, Colt McCoy sort of combo, sending it to the Thief, looking to upgrade to Deshaun Watson, or maybe a Dak for a Watson. Obviously, I'm adding sweetness to that. I think the Pigskins should be looking at Watson there, trying to sort of buy him on sort of his relatively downish year. So to me, that would be the fundamental start of the trade. I think it would be quite a big blockbuster here. If I'm the Pigskins, I'm desperately trying to hold on to Dak and Stafford. So I'm going to go Kyler Murray, Colt McCoy as their original sort of offer. I'm probably going to throw in a few of the younger pieces. So seeing that the Unforgiven have Pacheco, I might add Deneric Prince just as sort of like a throw into the trade. I will also sort of entice him. He's also got Nick Chubb, so I'll throw in another handcuff of Jerome Ford to entice the sort of trade. Wide receiver wise as well, I think you could get quite a lot. You don't really want to lose Waddle, but I think if you can flip Waddle for Tyreek Hill, so you send Waddle away and pick up Tyreek Hill, I think that strengthens your team and is also enticing for the Unforgiven. And then I'm just sort of looking at the bottom there. Yeah, so yeah, I think I'm pretty ready to sort of actually officially offer here. So if I'm the Pigskins approaching the Forgiven, I'm officially offering Kyler Murray, Colt McCoy. I'm offering Jerome Ford and Deneric Price and Jalen Waddle. So I'm sending those 5 across. And what I want in return is I want Deshaun Watson, I want Tyreek Hill, and as a throw-in, I would quite like Davon Hamilton at defensive tackle.
It's not bad.
That's not bad.
I was wondering halfway through, like, would you, if you're a rebuilding team, would you almost trade Tyreek straight up for Jalen Waddle? Like, if you're a competitor in a rebuilding team?
I mean, that's what I was looking at. I was looking at the Waddle Tyreek swap, but I do like the Watson Arizona swap as well.
Mm-hmm. Because you're getting a guy.
Look,
I think. Go ahead.
Yeah, I think what might be enticing there is I think the Pigskins might have to add a pick onto this as well, because I think Deshaun Watson's a much sort of clearer thing. But at the same time, I know Kyler Murray gets a lot of sort of like there's a lot of questions around Murray. Obviously, coming off this injury, he is a mobile quarterback. The arm is there, but as you say, it depends what situation he falls into. Whether, like, regardless of whether he's at Arizona or where he ends up, I think he will have value. So I think he can hold his value there. And Deshaun Watson is sort of coming off not bad value. And look, Deshaun Watson's on a good 6-year deal, but that's what I'd try to be doing if I was the Pigskins here to Aaron. And I think that it's not terribly lopsided if you sort of at least gaining Murray. If I'm Aaron, I'm probably asking for a second or a third on top of that to give away Hill and Watson and essentially give you a title. Because I think if the Pigskins go into the season with Watson, Prescott, and Stafford, they're pretty stacked.
Yeah. And I think Kyler Murray gets shit on a lot because, you know, in terms of an NFL quarterback, you can do better. But when it comes to being a fantasy football player, he's top 10. every single year. Now, I don't know if he's coming back this year, next year, whatever it is, but he's not going to have DeAndre Hopkins. So that's another thing to consider too. And the Cardinals might be starting their rebuild sooner than later.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I shit on Kyler a lot, right? But I think he's a good fantasy asset, and I think right now you got to write, like you said, context and timing is key. I think right now is the perfect time if you are a rebuilder to approach a Kyler owner and try to do a deal like this. If I am a contender, I don't want anything to do with fucking Kyler, not this year, because I don't know if he's going to play one game or 0 games or whatever. So. I like the deal, man. I think there is something there. Like I said, I would be looking at trying to upgrade Waddle to Tyreek just because I know that floor is higher. That floor and ceiling is higher. But going that quarterback route as well and doing Watson, like that would be nasty. And the whole future league would be put on notice.
Yeah. I mean, Kyler Murray is going to be a staple there for at least the next 3-4 years. Like I'm looking at the contract details right now, and dead cap is $33 million in 2025, and it is $20 million in 2026. So you really can't get out until 2027. He's essentially locked in there for the next 5 years. So
unless
even
they trade
if you're
him.
gonna, true. But
there's some simulations
on that contract.
Oh yeah, there's some simulations where they got Arizona tanking and trading Kyler Murray to the Patriots next year for the Patriots first.
Okay. Well, all right. We'll see the simulation play out first, and then we'll talk. But sitting here as we stand, I don't know. I think that Kyler, for fantasy purposes, is a pretty solid guy to have if you're a rebuilding team, like you said, Sam.
Sweet. Well, man, you guys killed that exercise. I hope on the next trade show we can follow y'all's footsteps, because those were both good analysis, good takes, and maybe good trades we see here that the show did. So that's it, man. That's all I got. You guys got anything else before we wrap it all up? Nate?
No, it's been good, man. Yeah, sorry, because of the delay, I'm always waiting for sort of Corbin to kick us off. But no, it's been great, man. It's been good to cross swords with old Corbs. Thanks for the merch as well from the Secret Santa. But at the same time, it's been good to bounce ideas off trades and just catch up with you guys as well. This is close to the season.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. Nate, glad you liked the shirt. It's been a pleasure as always. Come and talking football. I'm just getting pumped for this draft tonight, honestly. I'm ready to go. It's got the juices flowing.
Good luck, buddy. Have fun, and appreciate everybody for tuning in. This is the International Football Bros, and we'll see you guys later. Peace.
See ya.